Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Now, you're probably going to have to dial your expectations back just a little bit for today's video, because just for a change, it's actually me playing in a division with Rita this weekend while she was live streaming World of Warships. So there's a chance that some of you may have already actually seen this battle, but it would have been from Rita's perspective and not mine. Rita very recently unlocked the Amagi, and in this battle she's playing it, I think, almost, if not entirely, stock, because she unlocked it very recently. She had a lot of fun with the Nagato at tier 7, and so far she's really enjoying the Amagi at tier 8. And so today I'm divisioned up with her in the USS Massachusetts, one of the many tier 8 premium American battleships. The thing that makes the Massachusetts so much fun is the blistering array of secondary gun batteries that it has. It rivals the German battleships for the amount of firepower its secondaries can put out. However, it's kind of difficult to use the ship to its full potential, its full fun factor, while you're training up other American battleship captains, because unlike German battleship captains, you tend to not focus on secondaries with American battleships. So what I tend to do with both my Massachusetts and my Massachusetts Bravo is to not use them to train other American battleship captains, and instead I've got a single 10-point captain at the moment that I share between the two of them. And he is specialised for secondary gun batteries, but he's only a 10-point captain. So while I do have manual fire control for secondaries, that means I don't have concealment expert. And this ship can be seen from the far side of the moon. The other thing that you have to bear in mind about the Massachusetts is that unlike its non-premium stablemate at tier 8, the USS North Carolina, the Massachusetts doesn't have the most reliable guns in the world. I mean, they hit hard, but they're not terribly accurate. In fact, they have worse sigma and dispersion values than even the USS Alabama, the other South Dakota class tier 8 premium battleship, and the Alabama doesn't exactly have a reputation for being a sniper. So the trick in the Massachusetts is to try to close the distance to at least secondary gun battery range from your victims while trying to avoid being obliterated on the way in. And once you're within that 9.4 kilometer secondary gun battery range that I have here, even those 406mm shotguns mounted in your main battery turret stand a reasonable chance of actually hitting what you point them at. So our overall plan here was to head down to Alpha, fight for that, hopefully obliterate anything that we find there, and then turn around, sail northeast through the other two caps on the way. However, as I mentioned, I can be spotted from the far side of the moon, and there seem to be an awful lot of enemy ships who have more or less the same intention as we do. And I'm starting to take fire, and I haven't actually hit anything yet, although I do at least eventually score some opening damage on the Bismarck down there. But the Bismarck is not alone. He's accompanied by North Carolina, a Graf Spee, an Atlanta, and although I don't know it yet, although he has just popped up on the map, a Fiji, and there's just me, Rita, and a Tirpitz heading down here. So I'm beginning to think that this may not be the best idea I've ever had, particularly since I don't want to continue sailing in the open here. I want to actually get into cover behind those islands off to my right. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to turn and show the broadside of my ship to a Bismarck, a North Carolina, a Fiji, and a Graf Spee. And that's really going to hurt. But in the greater scheme of things, it's probably going to hurt significantly less than continuing to sail straight towards them, because I'm basically sailing into a crossfire, and I will not last very long. So I'm just going to have to take it on the chin, get the ship turned around, take whatever the Bismarck and the North Carolina and the Fiji fire at me, and oh, there come the shots from the Bismarck, and well, it hurt, but it could have been a lot worse. Luckily, I caught the North Carolina at least between reloads, or he was shooting at somebody else. Possibly the Tirpitz up ahead of me. He's now on the far side of the island, where I pretty much really want to be, although not quite as exposed as that Tirpitz has suddenly found himself. He has overextended just a little bit. Perhaps he was keen to get the enemy into his secondary gun battery range. I don't know. But we've now got most of those enemy big guns, at least, on the far side of an island and unable to shoot at me, which is incredibly bad news for our friendly Tirpitz. You can just see him there, because now they've got nothing better to shoot at than him. So I don't really want to hang around here. I need to get out there and support him, at least give the enemy something else to shoot at, and attempt to keep that Tirpitz alive for as long as possible. So I'll fire a couple of parting shots at the Fiji. I'm not really expecting to hit him at this kind of range, but I've got nothing really else to shoot at. And that Atlanta, speaking of overextending, I mean, he's having all kinds of fun with the Tirpitz, but, well, he is just a light cruiser at the end of the day, and while neither the Tirpitz nor the Massachusetts have a reputation for having particularly accurate guns, he's getting so close that, well, it's only a matter of time. Now, my first salvo kind of misjudged his speed, but the second salvo from my front turrets, not so much. So, we're almost certainly about to lose the Tirpitz. But they're about to lose their Atlanta as well. There was no reason for the Atlanta to do that, by the way. I mean, I don't know if he was just trying to get within torpedo range of the Tirpitz, but there are all kinds of lovely islands there for him to hide behind and lob his shells over at the targets that have been spotted by other ships on his team. Instead, well, I needed him to die, because once he'd finished with the Tirpitz, I was going to be next. And getting shot at by an Atlanta hidden behind an island is nobody's idea of fun. Now, I do screw up here, and this could have been catastrophically bad for me if it wasn't for the terrible accuracy of the Bismarck's guns. You can see it coming. Yep, that Tirpitz hasn't quite finished sinking yet, and I've just managed to, well, run aground on its wreck. Broadside onto a Bismarck. The reason I made the turn was because I don't want to get within torpedo range of that Graf Spee over there. What I should have done was turn to the left and tuck myself in behind the island over there. Both the Graf Spee and the Bismarck would have been inside my secondary gun battery range, and while I do take some damage here, the Graf Spee does as well, but I have to get myself off this wreck. I mean, the Fiji's just turned up, the North Carolina isn't that far away. The Bismarck's about to reload its guns, and the Graf Spee is going to be in torpedo range very soon, and, well, even the Graf Spee's guns are no joke at this kind of range when you give them broadside in a South Dakota class battleship. Again, I'm focusing on the target that I can sink the quickest, although I do have my secondaries focused on the Bismarck. And, well, you can see the number of secondary gun battery hits that I'm scoring. We're up to 44. We set a couple of fires. The Bismarck is finding that he's not the only sheriff in town when it comes to secondary gun batteries. And he's really not enjoying this very much. And that's when the Graf Spee makes a critical error. Now, admittedly, it's not much worse than the error that I made when I got myself hung up on the wreck of the Tirpitz, but, well, I can punish him a lot harder for making that kind of mistake than he can punish me. And at this point, I'm yelling out to Rita, watch out, you're within the Graf Spee's torpedo range. He's almost certainly launched them. Rita's actually pretty good at this game. I mean, she's got good gamer's instincts, but she just doesn't know the details. She didn't even know that the Graf Spee had torpedoes, let alone that they had an 8-kilometre range. So, warned to watch out for torpedoes, she's taken evasive action. There goes the Bismarck, taken out by the fires set by my secondaries. There's my third kill. We're up to 106,000 damage, and the Fiji has just run out of friends. Now, he's trying to smoke up, but he's still firing his guns. And the Fiji's a great ship, but it's not a destroyer, and it has a cruiser's smoke firing penalty. So we can still see him. So he's doomed. He's going to be my fourth kill. And I'm yelling out to Rita at this point, watch out, Fiji will have launched torpedoes, but you can see she's already turned away. She's just unlocked the Fiji herself. She loves that ship, as well she should. It's fantastic. And she's fully aware that that guy was going to be launching torpedoes, and she's managed to avoid all of them. And this is when the North Carolina finally enters the battle. I'm not quite sure what took him so long, because he was one of the first ships to shoot at me, but I suspect he was being harassed by one of our destroyers. And while he has a significantly larger amount of health at this point than I do, he's given broadside, and I'm not. And suddenly his health advantage isn't looking quite so strong. And then he's so focused on shooting at me and trying to finish me off that he actually manages to run the ship aground. Yes, he pulls a Jingles landing. Although in World Warships, I believe that's more commonly referred to as a Notser on the island over there. I know he's going to be reversing, and I'm yelling at Rita, please, this is my Kraken, let me get the kill. And there it is for the Kraken Unleashed. And Rita was very generously saying, yes, absolutely, go ahead. You can have the Kraken. It wasn't until later that I found out that her guns were reloading anyway. So she wasn't in a position to take the kill anyway. You notice those waves of deep water torpedoes sailing through the gap where the North Carolina was? They were launched by the Asashio on our team, who's probably the reason why the North Carolina took so long to get there, as he just kept dodging his torpedoes. I suspect that was a cause of great exasperation to that Asashio because I kept sinking everything he was firing his torpedoes at. Although he did well. He finished this battle second on our team and did manage to get 2 kills. So he probably didn't take it too hard. 4 enemy ships left, although looking at where they all are, it's probably only that Monarch that I'm actually going to be able to inflict any further damage on. I'm not too worried about the enemy aircraft carrier. I mean, despite the beating that I've taken, my anti-aircraft guns are still mostly intact, and the Massachusetts does have some fairly good AA, which is probably why that enemy torpedo bomber squadron has given me a wide berth and going for Rita instead. I mean, it makes sense. The Massachusetts has strong AA. The stock Amagi, yeah, not so much. I was turning in towards the torpedo bombers thinking that they were going for me, but nope, they're going for Rita instead, but she saw them coming. We managed to shoot the whole squadron down between us, and I've managed to get the nose of the ship turning around again to angle against the Monarch, because he's probably going to be firing armor piercing. And there are more dive bombers coming in, and yep, it is armor piercing, so I'm not broadsiding him, although despite that he does do a fair chunk of damage. I'm now out of heals, the dive bombers are coming in, and I'm pretty sure they're going for me rather than Rita, and I'm absolutely fine with that because I'm much more able to deal with the dive bomber attack than she is. Now, when I saw the Monarch coming around the corner and the dive bomber squadron coming in, I did kind of have my finger hovering nervously over the damage control button in case I'd had a double fire set, but, well, I expected the Monarch to be firing armor piercing, and not high explosive, and he still is, because unlike the Nelson, the Lion and the Conqueror, the Monarch doesn't get a ridiculous chance of fire on target with its high explosive shells. And the dive bombers never managed to set a fire anyway because I shot most of them down before they could get their bombs off. Nevertheless, I'm out of heals and the Monarch has been doing some fairly chunky armor piercing damage to my superstructure. But the enemy team are down at 35 points. And he's kind of realised that he needs to get some damage in. He switched to the high explosive, which didn't do much damage by itself, but did set a fire. But the enemy team are now down to 35 points, and the very next ship that we sink is going to 0-point the enemy team and win us the match. And I was kind of hoping it was going to be me. I was hoping I was going to be able to finish off this Monarch. Unfortunately, it was not to be. Our Shikaku has managed to torpedo the enemy Richelieu, and he is steadily flooding. And he's going to be the next one to die, which is going to bring this match to a conclusion around about now. But I wasn't complaining. I was quite happy with that. Over 1.1 million credits, 16,000 experience, 3,000 free experience, 157,000 damage, devastating strike, dreadnought, Kraken Unleashed, and high caliber. And a whole bunch of missions completed into the bargain. But it's the secondaries that make the Massachusetts so much fun, and they did score 126 hits in this game, doing 22,000 damage of their own and nearly 11,000 fire damage, which is kind of nice, although it's not as nice as it could have been, because I only have a 10-point captain, and I don't have the IFHE skill. You see, the Massachusetts secondaries consists of 10 double-barreled 127mm gun mates. And without IFHE, those high explosive shells can only penetrate 21mm of armour. With IFHE, they can penetrate 27mm of armour, which basically means most, but not all, Tier 8, 9 and 10 cruisers, bow and deck plating. But Jingles, you weren't shooting at any Tier 8, 9 or 10 cruisers. Well, it wasn't through lack of trying. I was desperate to get some shots into that Megami towards the end of the battle, but yeah, you're right. Even if I'd had a 14-point captain with the IFHE skill, in this battle it wouldn't have made any difference. So, you know, I'm quite happy to settle with my Kraken, and my Dreadnought, and my high caliber, and my 156,000 damage, and my 1.1 million credits earned. I was quite happy with the result of this battle, and I hope you enjoyed watching it, because that's it for today. I'd like to thank everybody for watching, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.